Happy New Year, everybody.
Cheers.
I said that like a robot.
Okay. I'm former movie trivia schmodown singles champion Marisol McKee, aka Lady Justice.
And I'm former movie trivia schmodown singles champion Adam the Coyote Collins. Well, we made it through our first year as champs on film. I think we're brave. I'm proud.
So brave. Thank you so much for the support, for the beginning of our channel. It's more than we could have hoped. It's very heartwarming.
But we had one hell of a year in 2022 at the cinemas.
Nothing like getting to the end of the year to realize how little you've actually seen of what you wanted to see. So these last couple weeks have been pretty exciting, but totally worth it.
Mm-hmm.
We had a good amount of overlap.
Wanted to compare notes, you know.
So let's get to it. Let's get to our favorite films of 2022. And let's kick it off with our honorable mentions. First for me is a little rom-com called Bros. What I love so much about Bros is the normalcy of it, similar to the way Love, Simon came out and was such a hit a few years ago. It's okay to do formula when you do formula effectively. And I found Bros just disarmingly charming. Billy Eichner has really come into his own, has really evolved as a performer. I found it very fresh. I found it very funny. And I think Bros just, more than maybe a lot of films of the year, just warmed my heart.
Coincidentally, one of my honorable mentions is a film that I saw while you were seeing Bros. Parker Finn's horror film, Smile. It's a viral horror movie in the best sense. I recommend this movie for any horror fans who may have missed it. I'm not guaranteeing that everyone out there is going to love it because it is kind of a bitter movie. And it does have a very specific take on how we deal with trauma specifically and how that can be itself almost a social disease. The imagery in this movie just stuck with me.
My other one is RRR.
Yeah.
Triple R. What a blast of a movie. I mean, this is one of the biggest hits of the year across the globe. Taking something that is just out of straight history, technically, but just wrapping it up and making it larger than life and making it this supernatural odyssey. I certainly enjoyed it.
I was on the fence about bringing this up, very near and dear to my heart. So
that's all that matters, baby.
Yeah, a little animated film came out this year on Paramount Plus called Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe. Mike Judge and company have done a great job of not updating the characters, but inserting them into modern society. So they're dealing with the politics and the technology of the time and the pop culture. And they're as stupid as they've ever been. Is it actually a top film of the year, in my opinion? Maybe not. But I laughed my ass off a lot.
Now,
all right,
on to top 10. We're kind of alternating what was on individually our lists, and then we're going to come to our shared lists. So don't take this as a definitive order for each of them. It's just how we're choosing to do it. First on my favorite films of 2022. First up is the newest film from Swedish director Ruben Östlund, which is Triangle of Sadness. It was pretty easy for me to fall in love with this movie. We've seen a lot this year of satires about class divides, particularly dark comedies, really embarrassing the people at the top. I think that Triangle of Sadness, of all these kind of similarly themed films, I think this one takes a cake, particularly because it takes that conversation one step further. It's low-hanging fruit at this point to just make fun of the Elon Musks of the world because they're the Elon Musks of the world.
They do suck.
I think this movie really captures is that when you scramble us all around and when somebody, even no matter who it is, once you get that opportunity to get a taste of that status at the top, power corrupts and achieving that social status corrupts indefinitely.
I think it's a return to form, like in the style. I brought up Louis Buñuel a lot, Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie. It reminded me of that in the best way. Jean Renoir's Rules of the Game.
I found that delicious. I found that the black comedy in here just delightful, some of the funniest of the year, and it really struck a chord with me.
Okay, well, I guess I can pick one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Resurrection, directed by Andrew Siemens, starring Rebecca Hall and Tim Roth. One day at a professional conference, she notices a gentleman played by Tim Roth, and it's obvious that this brings up bad memories for her, and the movie kind of goes from there. This movie is incredibly strange, and I'm not going to say too much about it because the thing about Resurrection that's so cool is discovering it for yourself as much as possible, and it explores not only the nature of toxic relationships, but just the nature, much like Smile, but I think this movie does it a little more interestingly, trauma. Resurrection takes some big swings. It's incredibly bold. Rebecca Hall and Tim Roth sell the truth of this insane story. And I walked away feeling like I understood it, even though I'd never seen anything like it. And Rebecca Hall gives an amazing monologue in this movie, which a lot of people have talked about. But that's only one aspect of this movie that I think is going to stick with you if you see it.
She's the reason I saw it.
Excellent
Christine.
movie.
She's the reason I followed your recommendation with The Night House, and she's the reason that I'm going to seek this movie out.
Not your average thriller. And if you're a fan of David Cronenberg, especially classic David Cronenberg, you owe it to yourself to see Resurrection.
Ooh, next. Look, can't be mad. You can't be mad. You could take the girl out of Philly, but you can't take the Philly out of the girl.
I would never try.
My next favorite film of 2022 is Hustle. I'm a sucker for movies that revolve around Philadelphia and movies that are actually filmed in Philadelphia. Movies that revolve around my favorite sport, which is basketball. Hustle has both of these things, so you do the math. I've always had a soft spot for Adam Sandler when he applies himself. I think we all win when he takes his craft pretty seriously and commits to it. He's the heart of this film. Adam Sandler, the main character, and his wife Queen Latifah grew up playing the game. They met in college. They fell in love as basketball players in college, and then they've just taken that love of the game through their life. It hits all these elevating, feel-good beats in a true underdog style, in a caring father-daughter relationship style, and I can't get over how much this film is shot in Philadelphia, head to toe. It's not going to overwhelm you the way Rocky or Creed would overwhelm you. Those movies wreck me. But it still does a pretty admirable job. I love this movie. It is absolutely one of my favorites of the year.
As someone who has spent a good amount of time in Philadelphia since I've met you, I think I'm going to get a lot out of that too. One of my next picks from 2022 was one that I saw late in the game from director John Patton Ford called Emily the Criminal, about a young woman, millennial, who has, over $70,000 in student debt. And she's just trying to close the gap and get ahead. And she never quite can. This is Aubrey Plaza's movie. And I personally think she deserves an Oscar nomination for this. Every time she takes a hit, she's not going to take it sitting down, and you're rooting for her no matter what, even if she's not making the best decisions. And it is just such a relatable story about how pointless it is to put on airs about success, how useless it is to make that cocktail party small talk about your career arbitrarily. Having had to deal with debt on and off throughout my life for similar reasons.
Makes you want to rob a bank.
Well, you know what? You watch this, you understand where she's coming from. Emily the Criminal is a very confrontational story that doesn't pull its punches. And it may not get a lot of love from the Academy, but I'm glad that it's found its audience. And I'm glad I was able to finally catch up with it.
You knew it was coming. You know me. You knew it was coming.
Was it 13 years in the making?
I was looking forward to it. It did not disappoint. Avatar, wow.
Yeah, we call it Avatar Wow in this house.
We do.
At least now we do.
Because wow, indeed. There's not a whole lot to say that hasn't been said to hell and back already about this film. Cameron uses its technology to immerse you in a whole new level with nature and really, really make you feel an exploration of his intense ecological themes, things that he loves so much.
This movie opened up this world of Avatar that James Cameron's created for an even wider audience. And I think he gave us a glimpse of why he has so many of these in his head ready to go.
Let's go, Avatar 3, 4, 5, 6, and 12. Let's go. Oh, is that too much?
I know.
My favorite thing, too, about Avatar movies is just the intense, passionate discussion. You either need to be all in one camp or all in the other. Yeah. And I just appreciate this film for all it does, for the way it invigorates the industry. And I'm so excited for the next one.
what better way to follow up one of the most visually striking films of the year than with one of the most low budget, amazingly creative movies of the year?
Touche.
And that would be the horror comedy Deadstream, directed by husband and wife filmmaking duo Joseph and Vanessa Winter. And Deadstream is just a delightful found footage horror comedy that really keys into online and YouTube culture. It's about a YouTuber of sorts who's sort of fallen out of grace due to a recent controversy. He decides he's going to record himself in a haunted house. It is very much in Raimi's style, but for a modern audience. And it's commenting on new things that were never talked about in the Evil Dead movies. I insisted that you watch this with me. And
Yes,
to
you
your
did.
credit, you did.
I did.
And we had a fun night at the movies.
And to your credit, I enjoyed it. It was a stupid good time.
And my only hope is it gets a physical media release because it's a Shudder exclusive right now. Deadstream, go watch it.
My next favorite of 2022 is Gina Prince Bythewood's The Woman King. This is a handsome, crowd-pleasing, historical epic in the vein of some of the favorites of the last 30 years. Braveheart, Gladiator. The cast is excellent, all the way from the top to the bottom, from newcomers to veterans. There's a lot to appreciate just by telling the story of these women and telling them in a way that elevates the complicated role that they had in history. It touches on everything without necessarily needing to be a documentary about this subject, but enlightens. And the emotion is there. I'm so happy that Prince Bythewood directed this film. I've always appreciated her. She brings that humanity that just elevates this project beyond just the spectacle.
These historical dramas, especially the ones with a little more action in them, like Braveheart, Gladiator, that tradition can continue as long as there's a good story behind it.
Mm-hmm. And I'm pleased to say that Woman King did its job.
All right, moving on to one of my next choices for top films of the year. One that I wasn't expecting, and that's Ty West's Pearl. I'm a big fan of Ty West overall. House of the Devil, The Innkeepers, The Sacrament. Pearl, more so than X, in my opinion, really dials into not only an aesthetic, but a very specific mood. And this movie feels like it's so wonderfully focused on its protagonist. The horror and the violence of Pearl's story enhances a lot of her inner turmoil in a way that I just didn't expect. And when I was saying Rebecca Hall's monologue was insane, Mia Goth has a monologue in this that's on par. Pearl is going to stand on its own regardless of the third film and regardless of the first film, because it is its own self-inclusive story that happens to have another movie that ties into it, and that's cool. But it's an amazing performance from Mia Goth. It's Technicolor nightmares writ large. It looks beautiful. And, that seems to be a theme this year, trauma. But I find movies that deal with it effectively and earnestly to be some of the most engaging out there. And I think Pearl's excellent. I'm definitely going to watch this movie again and again.
Speaking of trauma, my next favorite film of the year it's got plenty of that. From writer-director Audrey Diwan, it is the abortion drama Happening. We're seeing abortion popping up more and more as a topic in film. This is France, 1963. And it feels terrifyingly like the reality of so many young women that are living their lives today. Almost a docudrama, almost in a sense, the way it's so stripped and so observational. And what is tragic about this whole thing is that it draws into sharp relief how little support she has in every single aspect of her life, from her parents, from her best friends, from her doctors, which is the most terrifying aspect of it, because abortion is illegal in France at this time. Happening is especially brutal because it graphically explores the dangers of this woman feeling she has no choices in controlling her own life. This is not just a movie of the moment. It gets a lot of attention because of what is happening right now, but it is so timeless and deeply personal that this has the legs to last for a very, very long time. And I think this movie will be talked about for years to come.
I had one more pick, and that would be Robert Eggers' third movie, The Northman. It's a more straightforward story in some ways than The Lighthouse and The Witch, and less of a horror movie than those two. But I also don't think it's fair to box in a filmmaker like Robert Eggers as a horror guy. I think he's definitely a genre filmmaker, and The Northman has that in spades. This is a bitter revenge story. It's not a story about redemption. It's a story about affirmation. Shedding light on that, as brutal as it is interesting. The thing I really love about the presentation of this movie is the way it visualizes Norse mythology in a unique way, especially in the age of the Marvel movies where Thor is such a popular character and it's this goofy version of Asgard and everything. It's so important to see what this religion actually meant to its people. The performances are great all around. The action is compelling, and the visuals are absolutely stunning. The score, I've listened to quite a bit. I think a huge leap forward for Eggers as a visual storyteller.
I want to fight somebody buck naked in front of a pool of lava
Uh-huh.
to the death.
We all do.